Good day. Just got back from the Norris Group event where Bruce Norris talked about what's going to be happening throughout 2017 in the realm of real estate. So it was quite a day. Started at 8 o'clock this morning, went until about 5:30 this afternoon. Got a lot of notes here. Took a lot of notes about what he talked about, and I agreed with a lot of it. There was some of it I'm not too sure about, but wanted to go through it all with you guys and kind of give you an update on what's going to happen in California, not only for 2017, but Bruce went out 10 years and actually did a prediction all the way through 2027. So the title of the course today was the 2% mortgage rates, $40 trillion in debt, and surprise endings. One of the big things that he touched on is that this is really a way for him to appraise the state of California as a whole. And we went through different ways to do that. A lot of them are very interesting. I think that you'll enjoy this. Take a couple minutes with me and we'll go through everything. The first one was the real estate market timing. Where we are at right now in the cycle, what's going to be happening over this next year. And then ways to differentiate and make a difference for your family as a whole. If you knew what was going to happen in real estate, not maybe this year, but the year after and the year after that, what could you do and what choices would you make in order to take advantage of this market? Bruce is a very engaging speaker, and not only does he talk the talk, he does walk the walk. He's actively investing, he's buying and selling properties and developing in California, and now also too in Florida. So he does see everything on a daily basis, and he is an authority and actually gets a chance to tell us about his knowledge, the pain that he's had in the past, the losses that he's took, including some of his projects in Palm Springs, and the happiness he's been able to provide for so many countless investors and other families. So he loves historic charts. He goes through the numbers. His big thing is affordability, where we fall in that cycle right now. He always puts his forecasts in writing, and he does a well, this is going to be his last one for a while, but he always puts his forecasts in writing, talks about them informatively, and basically isn't afraid to be wrong, although he hasn't been wrong very often. In 2005, he did predict that the market was going to be going down. I unfortunately didn't take his word for it at that time. I saw him at the San Diego Creative Investors Association meeting in December of 2005, where he predicted the California countdown, which ultimately got called the California crash. And unfortunately, I thought, wow, 2005, everything's going amazing. It was our best year in residential real estate in San Diego. We sold 72 properties that year. We invested another 28. And I thought, wow, the market's great. Nothing could be better right now. Little did I find out that in 2006, of course, the market turned, went straight down the tubes. So anyway, what we want to find out are the facts. We want to get straight to the facts. What the market's doing, why it's doing that. No alternative facts here, none of the stuff that they talk about in politics, but these are the facts and what's gone on for the last 30 to 40 years in California real estate, and specifically Southern California real estate. Bruce goes to the Cal State Pomona every year, gathers the facts for about 50 years of what's been going on in Riverside, San Diego, Los Angeles, Orange counties, and talks to the literal trends and the pricing and the trustee sales and foreclosures and short sales and what's going on in the market right now and what's going to happen for the next 12 months or so. The big way that Bruce comes to his cycles in the market is through affordability. The affordability that when a person puts down a 20% down payment and can make a payment based on the average wage in California, that's the affordability index. And right now it's at about 31%. In 2016, the number is about 31% affordability, which means that if you earn the medium wage, put down 20% down payment, 31% of the people that live in the state of California could afford to purchase a property and make the payments at that rate. At the high, it was up into the high 50s, as high as almost 60% in 2009, 2010. And then the last couple of cycles, what we've seen in 1980, when the market turned, the affordability rate got down to about 17%. Then it went right back up again into the high 30s, low 40s. Then in the last downturn, in 1989, the affordability got down to 17% again. And then throughout the 90s, we had a wave of foreclosures until the affordability went back up. Then throughout the late 90s into the early 2000s, in 2005 and 2006, affordability got down to 11%, which was the lowest it's ever been due to a number of factors. But the biggest one was the systemic problem with loans and the basic stated income loans, which gave anybody the ability to get a home even though they couldn't afford it, and there was no way that they could make the payments on the home that they purchased. So that systemic effect really created the wave of foreclosures and defaults that we saw in 2006, 7, and 8, which led to just a drastic reduction in prices that has never been seen. There's never been a precedent throughout the history of California real estate. In fact, in the downturn of 1980, prices actually went up. Even though foreclosures skyrocketed and things weren't great, the average price in California went from about $90,000 and ended up at about $100,000 after the foreclosures had worked their way out. And that was the savings and loan crisis and everything else that happened back at that time. In the late 80s, early 90s, prices did go down, but they only went down about 12 to 15% overall, depending on where you lived in California. Obviously, in this last cycle from 2006 to 2012, prices had gone down in some markets as low as 70 or 80%. Which meant they were at 20 cents on the dollar. Bruce had picked up properties as low as 15 cents on the dollar. I know that in Las Vegas and Phoenix, some areas of San Diego, we had purchased properties as well that were, in the $50,000 and $60,000 price range for a house, a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, 1,500 square foot house. So, prices did take an enormous hit. So affordability is the biggest key factor in determining what's going to be happening going forward. We are at a 31% affordability right now, which leads to really good things for 2017. We've got affordability. There are a couple of factors that come into affordability. The biggest one being interest rates right now for us. Interest rates are still hovering at all-time lows, about half of what they were during the last peak. Wages play a factor in that. They are pretty stagnant. They've gone up a little bit in the last 10 years, but not much. Also, creative lending programs play a huge role in that, obviously, as we saw in 2006. And nobody wants to see what happened back in the early 2000s happen again. Although in our current political environment, there have been the rumblings of deregulations, obviously doing away with Dodd-Frank, and that'll just allow lenders again to do what they do, which is lend money at any cost possible and get those creative programs in place that may affect us again in the economy. If there is another portion where we get into the fact where people are purchasing homes that they can't typically afford, we could see another decline in prices, but hopefully that's not the case. So what we're looking at here in 2017 is that the market has been doing well. We are going to see a couple of things happen probably here in the next year or two, because we are running at an unprecedented pace of 7 years of consecutive growth, now going into our 8th year. The last time this happened was during the Kennedy-Johnson administration when they were presidents, when they had 8 years of economic growth. Since then, Clinton has seen 7 years, Bush has seen 7 years, Obama's last 7 years, and now we're running into our 8th year. So we are looking at potentially having a recession here coming up in the next year to two. That would cause something that's never happened before in the U.S., which usually the Fed combats a recession by reducing interest rates. Like last time this happened in the 2008 timeframe, the Fed dropped the interest rate from 5% down to 0. And then the time before that went from 6 to 2. Now that we're hovering at 0.5% for the Fed funds rate, the only thing the Fed could do was drop our interest rate to a negative interest rate, which has never been done before in the United States. Other countries around the world have created negative interest rates, so it's not completely unheard of when it comes to world finance, but it would be the first time it's happened in the United States. To give you an idea, Japan has had a negative interest rate or around zero for the last 20 years. Their current 30-year mortgage, they have a 35-year mortgage, is about 1.5%. Isn't that amazing that a person in Japan could buy a home and get a 35-year fixed rate for 1.5% interest? And that doesn't mean that people in Japan are running out to buy homes. In fact, the real estate market has basically been in a free fall for the last 30 years, ever since the late 80s, early 90s. So the interest rate doesn't really play into the effect of what the demand is for housing that much, although it does help to hopefully be able to drag the country out of a recession. So anyway, looking at that potential recession, that would obviously cause sellers a difficulty, because at that point, there's usually not as many buyers that come to the market. Prices may dip, and that would cause a little bit of panic, but we wouldn't see as much as we saw back in 2006, 7, and 8, when the foreclosures really dampened the market and caused so much turmoil and flux. So we may see that dip here in the next year to two, which would mean if you're wanting to put your home on the market and sell it, you should probably take advantage of what we've got now, especially as we run into these summer months where homes are usually in demand. Also, too, if you're buying a home, Bruce had predicted over the next 10 years that we should see about 3% appreciation over the next 10 years or so. So the median price right now is about $510,000, which means that even in this year, we should probably see prices that go up to about $525,000 to $550,000 in some markets, depending on how we're looking for growth. Of course, that may change based on recessions, but we are looking at up and downs. And over the long haul, though, we shouldn't see anything too drastic like we saw in the mid-2000s. So we will see a little bit of run up, hopefully every year. It's not going to be a straight line by any means, but we should be able to see California real estate still in demand throughout the next 10 years or so. Bruce was extremely informative. He did come with as much facts and as many charts and as much data as we thought he would. He presented everything that made sense in a logical way. He's such an amazing real estate investor and has been doing this now for 40 years. He's a plethora of knowledge. So I thank you for listening to this. If you need anything regarding home selling, buying, investing, we offer remodeling services now. So if you've got a kitchen or bathroom that needs to be rehabbed, we've been flipping homes for such a long time. We've got such great construction crews that we've been offering those services as well. Have an amazing 2017, and I hope to see you guys all again soon.